So hi Mikey, how you doing?
Good. Another day.
That's the spirit.
Yeah.
So this is an exciting time for the agency because you head up our MarTech team and we've just launched one of the products we've been working on for a little while that is called Creative Decay. Do you want to give us a quick summary of what on earth Creative Decay actually is and what it does?
Yeah. So Creative Decay is at its heart a planning tool that allows us to better merge budgets between how much you spend on creative versus how much you spend on media to make that balance as optimal as can be to get the right performance. Because there's always a way up with how much budget you're spending on creative and how much budget you leave for media to deliver. And getting that balance right can lead to radically improved performance. Well, that's what the tool is has revealed for us.
That's great. And there's always been this sort of tension between the amount of media and creative investment required, hasn't there? And it's always sort of the sense has been that creative has played second fiddle, as it were, to the media investment side.
Yeah, I think the reality is that digital as an industry has structured itself around having data to say this is working better and that's working better, and that's led to us preferring to optimize strategies and to optimize targeting than necessarily look at creative and optimize that. Now, we've always had like information about which creative has performed better, but because of the way the whole industry has structured its data and its understanding of creative, it hasn't really allowed advertisers until now to have a view of how fresh their creative is and if they should just keep their creative being a bit fresher to improve their performance, or if in fact they've got so many creatives that they're actually losing performance because it's not allowing the algorithm time to optimize.
Okay, so let's take a step back and just be really clear about what it is we've developed. So this is a bit of campaign planning software that primarily works across which channels at the moment? And is it more for branding campaigns or is it performance campaigns?
Yeah. So this tool works primarily on social right now because that's where creative has a huge impact. It's a planning tool but it can be used on branding and performance campaigns. It's mainly aimed at performance campaigns because of the want to like maximize performance there in terms of its goal, but it could similarly be used for branding campaigns to improve performance there.
And where's the data actually coming from that's signaling the scenarios that we are modeling out here?
Yeah, so the data is based on your own accounts, Facebook historical data. It's nothing that everyone doesn't have access to, but we've restructured it and reformatted it so that we can understand it in a completely new way and action decisions based off it. And it uses that data and then builds models and algorithms to forecast what your level of performance could be with different levels of creative.
And when we talk about performance uplifts, what kind of metrics are we talking about? Is it your standard sort of performance KPIs or anything?
Yeah, so it can work to any KPI, because the reality is the performance uplift is triggered by creatives naturally fatiguing over time or decaying, hence the name. And that will happen regardless of what you're optimizing to. We can build our models around any metric. So it doesn't, from our side, doesn't matter which metric it is, but it can always be an uplift by having the right balance of creative and media.
And I mean, we've been testing this for a little while with our existing clients, and now what sort of performance uplifts are we sort of modeling out based on the client campaigns that we're seeing?
The reality that we're seeing is that if you're spending a large amount on for the same audience size, you could be losing 25% of your performance after 7 days, and that's huge. Like the fact that you would, like, if you were trying to do an optimization that was going to improve your performance 25%, you wouldn't find it unless you were doing something like when you first took over an account to completely reformat the targeting. But that's what this is saying, that you could be boosting performance quite dramatically.
And I guess people might be watching this thinking, well, that just means I'm going to have to spend a ton more on creative. I mean, is that the case? Is it just the case that we just need more and more creative, or is it telling us something different than that?
The reality is it's a balancing act between your budget size and your targeting and your creative. So it produces scenarios where it's saying that more creatives will lower your performance because you won't have enough to spend on media. It does often say that you should be spending more on creatives, but it's not just how you spend more on creatives, it's also how you use them. Should it be one set in rotation or two sets in rotation, for instance? Because that's going to affect how quickly things fatigue and decay, and therefore your performance off the back of it. So it's a balancing act between those. Sometimes it says that you should need more, sometimes it says that you need less.
And I think one of the smart things about this is it actually takes into account the time of actually swapping out creative as well as the production cost of the creative, in whether it's actually worth it in driving that ROI.
Yeah, exactly. So it tells you not only what day you should start making creative changes on, how the distance between your creative changes and how many sets you should be putting into rotation at all times, by modeling out every scenario that could possibly take place, and then comparing the outputs against how much the creative is going to cost in that scenario. So it does a lot of the legwork that to a certain extent our account managers throughout the industry have attempted to do themselves before now, but now it can do every scenario rather than just the ones that you can do by hand, which you can go from 10 to 250,000 with this.
And so at the moment, I say just because it's a big step forward in what other agencies and ourselves are using at the moment, but it's Facebook and Instagram at the moment that we're running this through, right?
Yeah.
So what's next?
So the obvious bit is to expand to other channels, because this fatigue effect happens everywhere, not just on social. Social is obviously a very creative focused channel, which is why we started there. But within social and across it, the other expansion is to make it content aware, so that it's not just about how creative refreshes, it's about the content within the creative and how that will affect your performance, so that it decay faster or not decay as quickly, and the performance that you should get at the beginning, so it can start advising about the elements that you should have in there.
And I guess the exciting thing for brands that we're able to offer is that we have the opportunity to run an audit for them to measure their historic and current performance. That's correct?
Yeah, exactly. So we can take the historical account and look into it, and then compare it with our model of the scenario and see what potential uplift could have happened by a different number of creatives, with relative ease.
And how quick does that take us to do? If a brand came to us and said, look, can you just give us a sort of snapshot of where we are and how we can improve, how long would it take and what do we need from them?
So there's two ways that we can do it. We can either use our aggregate data of a sector, just to get a broad picture of where they are, their performance versus what they had previously, where just a description of what they've done before and their accounts would be sufficient. Or we can, and that would be very quick. We could turn that around to most timeframes. And then we can also train the models to work distinctly off their past data, so that it's perfectly attuned to the patterns that they've seen in the decay of their creatives over time, which will make it more specific, but will take a little bit longer for us to turn around, but potentially more valuable. It depends on your purposes, really.
Great. Well, thanks very much. That's been a really helpful insight as to what creative decay is all about. And if you'd like to get in touch, learn more, and even for us to run an audit, get in touch. Thank you very much, Mikey.
Thanks. Cheers.